And Martin, where were your parents from?
Czechoslovakia.
You were born here in America?
I was born in America. Coal Ridge, Ohio.
And you came to this area?
Well, first I went to the Painesville area. I worked up there at Diamond Shamrock Company. And then I moved to West Farmington. And from West Farmington I moved to Levittsburg, where I live now.
And what did your parents do for a living?
My father was a coal miner. My mother was a homemaker.
And where you attended school?
Grade schools was in Coal Ridge, Ohio. And I graduated from Bell Valley High School in 1938.
Do you remember your feelings and where you were at the time you heard about Pearl Harbor being bombed?
Yes, I remember where I was. I was in Klabushnik's store. It was a store where in the evenings we used to gather and play pinochle and shoot the breeze. We was there that night when it came over the radio.
And your feelings about that?
Well, I was shocked. Never expected anything like that.
Remember anything about Roosevelt's speech?
Oh, I remember that he made a speech. I don't remember the exact words, though.
Did it inspire you in any way to enlist?
No. It just let us know that we'd gone to war with Japan and Germany and Italy.
And you were in high school at the time, Martin?
No, I was out of high school. I graduated in 38. I was working in a quarry, stone quarry at that time.
What were some of your duties in the stone quarry?
Loading limestone, unloading it, helping crush it.
Were you married?
No. I was drafted July 28, 1942, and I was sent to Camp Swift in Bastrop, Texas, for basic training. We done basic training there with the 95th Division, and then we was transferred to Fort Sam Houston for advanced training. But while we were at Fort Sam Houston, I was sent back to Camp Swift as cadre to train the 97th Infantry Division. And I finished basic training with the 97th, and it got so my feet blistered on every march. So when the Army Air Force was advertising to sign up for pilots and bombardiers and navigators, I signed up. They accepted me, but when I got to the Air Force, they told me they didn't need any pilots or bombardiers or navigators, but they did need gunners. Did I want to be a gunner or go back to the infantry? And I said, I'll be a gunner. So they sent me to B-29 Gunnery School in Lowry Air Force Base, Denver, Colorado. And after I completed my gunnery training there, they sent me to Hastings Air Base in Nebraska and assigned me to a crew. And we practiced making different flights all over different parts of the country, and then they shipped us over to Tin Inn. And from Tin Inn, we flew to Japan. I made 30 missions to Japan while I was there.
Can you tell me anything about your training on the B-29, was it?
The training on it? Well, mostly it was central fire control, and we didn't need much training on that. The only thing, I was trained on how to fix it if something went wrong. But fortunately, while I was in the air, nothing ever went wrong. So I didn't have to do any repair work up in the air. We flew a lot of night missions. We would fly those missions and come in on a bomb run at 4,000 and 5,000 feet. So we didn't have to worry about fighter planes at night. The Japanese didn't have much of a fighter plane. In fact, they didn't have any. The only thing they used for fighter planes, why they used their regular planes, and if you got in a searchlights, well then the fighter planes would come at you. But it wasn't very successful for them. But in the day missions, why they had some Zero fighters that were pretty good, and they gave us a battle.
You were flying off an air base out of Japan to the island?
Out of Tinian. We'd fly to Japan and then back to Tinian. Except one mission, we got shot up pretty bad. We had to land at Iwo Jima and get repairs because we couldn't make it all the way back to Tinian. Iwo was about halfway help point between Japan and Tinian, so it came in handy. The island wasn't completely secure yet, but the airfield was when we landed. And we stayed overnight, and their mechanics fixed our plane, and we flew back the next day, back to Tinian.
Do you remember the date and month?
No.
The year?
I just know it was in the summer of 45. Summer or spring.
Martin, would you describe a typical mission non-combatic?
Well, usually about the only combat we'd have on night missions would be the anti-aircraft fire. There was no fighter combat to talk about. It wasn't worth talking about anyway, but of course they always had a lot of anti-aircraft fire going, especially if you was the tail end of the bomb run. The ones that got there first, they usually was pretty lucky. They didn't even get much anti-aircraft fire. It took them so long to get ready, I guess. But as a rule, the aircraft fire wasn't too bad, except on one mission when it was flying. It was a day mission. It was at about 25,000 feet, but they got us into their ack very bad, and that's when we had to land at Iwo Jima and get repairs.
How long would a typical mission last?
Well, from the time we left Tinian until we got back, it was usually 11, 12 hours. But it was flying over Pacific Ocean, most of it. You could relax till you got about 300 miles from Japan, then you'd start to get wary.
Could you describe relaxing? Did you see sights, the sky?
Yes. We was shooting at the Japanese planes, and one of them caught fire, and a pilot flew into the plane next to us and crashed into it. He wanted to take somebody with him, I guess, so he crashed into the B-20 next to ours. Our friends was on that plane. But four of them managed to bail out the back end of it. And when the other Japanese fighters saw that, two of them came over and started machine gunning these guys hanging in there, helpless in their parachute harness. I never got credit for shooting any of the fighter planes down, but I was shooting at them when they went down. But they gave the credit for the kill to the plane that was nearest to it, and I never happened to be the nearest one to the fighter planes when they were shot down. But I was in on 4 or 5 kills of their planes.
And on returning back to base, what did you do to relax? How did you feel?
We played a lot of pinochle and cribbage. And, of course, shot the breeze. But mostly there was pinochle games going on all the time.
And were you to wake up the next morning for another mission?
Oh, after we got back from the mission, we'd go to sleep. And no matter what time of day it was, we were allowed to go to barracks and go to sleep because it was a long mission and tiring. On the mission where we had to land at Iwo Jima, the ground crew counted the holes in our plane when they repaired it, and they counted 120 holes in the plane from machine gun fire and from anti-aircraft fire. But nobody on the plane received as much as a scratch, so you have to say we were pretty lucky.
Was anybody on any of your missions ever wounded?
Oh, yes, some of them were. But we never were on our plane. We even crashed one plane on takeoff, and the only guy that was hurt was a bombardier, got a broken leg out of it. We went over the end of the runway and crashed, and that's when he got a broken leg, but nobody else was hurt.
As a main gunner, where was your position on the plane?
Top gunner.
Top gunner. You were
Sat in the barber chair.
on the cockpit.
Uh-huh. In the back.
Can you describe that?
Yeah.
Your position of sitting and...
Yeah.
Could you tell me about it? What it felt sitting in that turret?
Well, it felt like the whole plane was shaking when I had 650 calibers to shoot. We had two turrets at the top. One with 250 calibers was strictly mine, and one in the front with 450 caliber machine guns was in the front. When a bombardier was on a bomb run, he turned the control over to me, so I had 650 calibers to fire, and when you fired them all at once, you could feel the plane shaking.
Leave. Can you describe a day? Did you ever have a leave?
What do we have to leave? Oh, about the only leave I got was during basic training, and after I finished gunnery school, they gave me furlough for about a week, I guess. So I went home and saw the family.
Can you tell me what that was like? Coming home?
Well, it was great. Everybody was glad to see me. And things were kind of rough. Food was rationed, gasoline was rationed. You couldn't do too much.
Did you have any other family members involved in the war effort?
Yes, my oldest brother George was with Patton's army. My brother John, next in age, was with the 37th Infantry Division in the South Pacific. And my brother Andy with the 101st Airborne Division, and he won a Silver Star in the Battle of the Bulge. Well, on a takeoff, once you got off the runway and they raised the landing gear, you felt pretty good. You knew everything was going good, because that's when you had the most trouble, when you was going down the runway, and if you had engine trouble or something, you couldn't take off on 3 engines, and sometimes if you tried to stop, the brakes would fail. That's what happened when we crash landed on takeoff. One motor cut out, and the brakes wouldn't stop us, so we went over the end of the runway. On landing, when you felt that squeal of the brakes hitting the landing field, why you felt real good.
From your perspective, being a top gunner, a lot was done by your hearing, right?
Yeah. The Indian natives were all kept in a camp, and the Army used some of them for work details around the island, but there was mostly Asian people, ones on the island, and we didn't have anything to do with them because they was locked up. You weren't allowed to go near them.
These were the natives of the island you were stationed on?
Tinian, yes. Tinian is an island about 4 miles across the water from Saipan. Saipan was a little bigger island than Tinian was. What was we stuck?
Yours were mainly bombing missions?
Oh yes, all our missions were bombing missions. We didn't do any other kind of missions. No, like surveying or anything like that. Just bombing missions. And we bombed all main cities in Japan. Tokyo, I was on 2 raids over Tokyo. On the first raid over Tokyo, our plane was one of the first ones over, and it was relatively smooth because they hadn't got their anti-aircraft fire going and their lights going too good, so we got by pretty easy. At the second Tokyo raid, we was one of the last planes, and they was all fired up for that. And besides that, there was so much fire there that it made it real rough flying. You had updrafts and downdrafts, and it was like riding a roller coaster.
That was the fires from the cities burning?
Yeah. That's what caused it, the city of Tokyo burning.
Was there anti-aircraft fire coming at you at the time?
Yeah. But it wasn't too close, so it's off a little ways from us, so we didn't worry about it. We was going too fast, I think. They couldn't keep up.
In a strange way, your view must have been a beautiful view, though.
Yes, it was. Except you couldn't look down. You couldn't see anything looking down. You had to look either to the side or up ahead of things.
You knew when you were over an ocean and over land?
Yeah.
Were you in radio contact with anyone else in the plane?
No, we just had our regular intercom. That put you in touch with everybody on a plane because everybody had hooked up to the intercom.
And how large was your crew?
How long what?
How large was your crew? The size of the crew?
There was 11 on the crew.
And the best you can you describe where the 11 were stationed on the plane?
Well, the bombardier was in the nose of the plane, right up front. Then pilot was on the left-hand side, and co-pilot was on the right-hand side. And behind them was the flight engineer that kept the engines revving at the right speed. And across from him was a navigator who plotted the headings to get where we wanted to go. And then went back to the middle of the ship. There was a right waist gunner and a left waist gunner. And then I was in a barber chair for the top waist gunner. And then behind us was a radar operator in a radar room. And then way back in the tail, all by his lonesome, was a tail gunner. That comprised the crew. Okay, the armor plate. The pilot and co-pilot had armor plate in their seats, so that protected their back. They're the only ones that actually had any armor plate. Nobody else had any.
What was your turret made from?
What was?
Your turret was glass, plastic? Where you were sitting?
Oh, the plastic, yeah. Plexiglass.
Plexiglass. Was it ever hit?
No.
No.
Fortunately, it wasn't. Because if it had been hit, it had probably shattered and would have lost the pressure. That might have sucked me right out. Because I didn't wear a seatbelt on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
For food, the mess hall would give us a can of fruit juice and also a can of tuna or fish or chicken to make sandwiches with, and they gave us rolls for the meat, to put the meat on. That's what we'd eat when we was flying.
And that would take care of a 12-hour day, huh?
That would take care of it. You really wasn't that hungry. You're just sitting there, you don't work up appetite.
How about temperature? Do you remember?
It was comfortable. When it was pressurized, the temperature would be warm enough that you could go in your shirt sleeves. You didn't need anything else on. It wasn't like the B-17 or B-24 where when they got up to altitude, it got real cold in there. This was warm.
What would you say your altitude was? What was the altitude?
Altitude? Oh, it varied, but usually on day missions it was about 25,000. Night missions was about 4,000 or 5,000, depending on the terrain around there. The first night we landed on Tin M, the Japanese sent 4 bombers over Tin M. One of them, the night fighter, shot down. Another one, the anti-aircraft fire got, and 2 bombed the airfield. They put holes in the runway, but we had Seabees there, and they filled them right up, so it didn't do much damage. That's the only time it was ever bombed. The first night was there.
There were no Japanese planes that ever crashed onto your island then?
No. We didn't have fighter escorts except the last couple of missions after towards the end there, because it was too far for them to fly. It was 1,500 miles each way, so fighters couldn't go that far. But after they captured Iwo Jima, we had a fighter escort a couple of times because it was only halfway for them to fly that way. And we had one fighter crash on the island. I don't know what happened to him, but he started out pretty high and he come straight down. He made a big splash on the runway. Of course, the pilot was killed. The plane was all scattered all over.
What was your most memorable moment on a plane? Good, bad?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Most memorable.
Could you think of your fondest memory of your time in the service?
My fondest memory was getting discharged.
Where were you and your feelings on the day you heard of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
What was my feelings? I was glad we done it. That made the war end sooner, I thought. By the way, I flew past Hiroshima after they dropped the bomb there, and it was really flattened out. We flew by there on a mission a couple of days after the bomb was dropped, and we could see it, and it really flattened out.
Was there still any fighting after the war was declared over?
Not after the war was declared over.
After Hiroshima?
Well, yeah, after Hiroshima there still was. They dropped another one over Nagasaki after that. We still flying missions. There weren't very many, but there were still a few missions after that.
Your first mission, did you feel scared, secure?
No, the first mission, it was just an adventure, something new. Wanted to know what was going on. Found out. The first mission was a night mission, and the only thing we had in opposition was anti-aircraft fire. We didn't have fighters, so it wasn't much to worry about.
Can you recall your scariest moment?
My scariest moment? Yeah. We was flying on a mission, and it was real soupy. You couldn't see hardly any length in front of you. And we were one of the tail end planes. And we was getting close to Japan. Pilot put everybody on alert, watch out for other planes, because they'd be coming back. We didn't want to hit them. Well, when we got within a couple hundred miles of Japan, there comes a plane right at us. I spotted it and I hollered. I got on an intercom with a pilot, and I told him there's a plane straight ahead. He nosed us down, and the other pilot went up, and we just missed. It was so close. You know, you've seen these cartoons where somebody gets scared and they draw them eyes big as saucers. Well, I could see the bombardier and the co-pilot's eyes in that other plane, and they looked as big as saucers. I was really scared at that. I thought sure we was going to hit each other. It's just a good thing the two pilots both was in sync on that, and one went up and one went down, so we missed.
That was daylight?
It was daylight, but it's so cloudy you can hardly see. It was up at, the mission was you're supposed to go to Japan at a certain altitude. After you dropped your bombs, you're supposed to go up. We was flying, I think, 23,000 feet. The ones coming back was supposed to be at 25,000. Well, that one coming back evidently dropped down. He was at our altitude. Soon as this happened, our pilot called the navigator. What was our altitude when that happened? And he told him right where we're supposed to be, 23,000. So it was the other guy that was off track. Okay. Life on a base, we'd eat in the mess hall, except when we eat on a plane or when we're going on a mission. But food wasn't the best. Seemed like they served a lot of goat meat. You could smell it before you got into the hall. Most guys take it and throw it in the trash. They eat the other stuff. And twice a week, we'd get the company would let you buy 2 beers. 2 beers on a Tuesday and 2 beers on a Thursday, and that's all you're allowed to have. And of course, we'd drink them right down when we got them. And most of the time, we took life easy. Once in a while, the pilot would make us go down and wash our airplane. He thought it made it faster if we went down and washed it. So we'd go down and wash it off and make it nice and clean. But other times, I would play cards or cribbage or shoot the breeze or read. A lot of people done a lot of reading. And that's the way we kill time on a base.
Were you receiving correspondence from home?
Oh, I get a letter occasionally, yes. I'd write occasionally.
Was there news about your brothers forwarded to you?
Sometimes. And when I was overseas, I usually got a package from home about once a month. I chewed tobacco at that time, so they used to send me chewing tobacco and cookies, homemade cookies. The cookies really hit the spot.
And on hearing about the surrender by the Japanese when the war was over, do you remember where you were and your feelings about that at that time?
Well, I was on tin end when I heard the war was over. And as soon as it was announced that the war was over, they also announced that the chaplain would be holding services. So I thought, well, that was a good time to go. So I went to the services for celebrate the ending of the war.
And how long were you there before you were sent home?
Not very long. The war was over in September, and I got home November.
And life when you got home, did you go right to work, back to school, take some time off?
I stayed home for a while before I went back to work, yeah. I waited till after the first year. I got home, I think it was the 15th of November, and I stayed home till after the first year, and then I went back to work. They held your job for 90 days, so I didn't have to rush back.
And where were you working, Martin?
In Paynesville at the Diamond Shamrock Company, chemical plant.
Your duties there? What were your duties there?
Oh, different jobs, operating machinery.
You had mentioned your brothers were also in the service. Everybody returned home safely?
Yes. Not a Purple Heart among us.
Did you receive any medals?
Distinguished Flying Cross and Air Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters.
What was your highest rank?
Tech Sergeant.
Duties as a tech sergeant?
Well, that was take care of the central fire control weapons on a B-29. Met my wife Anita in a dance hall about 4 or 5 years after the war, and we got married in 1952. We've been married for 55 years now, and we had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. The boy is dead. He died from cancer. And one daughter lives in Newton Falls and one daughter lives in Washington. And
what impact did the war have on you in present-day life?
Well, didn't have much of an impact. I just went and done my duty and came back and started in working. I got married and raised a family. And I retired in 1987. I've been retired for 20 years now.
Your activities now, Martin? Your activities now, your hobbies?
Now? Oh, I like to go to flea markets, look around, and play cards once in a while, watch television, read. I like to read Stephen King books. The Enola Gay that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima was parked on an apron next to ours, and there was guards around it 24 hours a day. We weren't allowed to go anywhere near it. They kept us away, and we did talk to the crew in the mess hall maybe sometimes, and Only thing they would say is, oh, they're going to drop a big blockbuster. Actually, they should have said city buster. But that's all they would say. They wouldn't tell you what they were there for. But they kept it secret. So I have to give them credit for that. They knew how to keep their mouths shut. We knew the Enola Gay dropped a bomb because it had the name on it. And as soon as they announced the Enola Gay dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima, well, we knew it had been the plane sitting right next to ours that done it. So we didn't have to worry about where the plane was or anything.
And returning home, you came home by ship, by plane?
Ship. They put us on a banana boat. It took 19 days to get home.
And how was life different there from?
On the ship, it was crowded, and you had to stand in line to get your food, and wasn't very comfortable. They flew us over when we was going to battle, but after the battle was over, well, they put us on a slow ship.
You left it all behind.
We flew our own plane over to Japan. We got a new one. The one we trained with in Nebraska, we just left it there. And we got a new plane, and we flew that over. Stopped in Sacramento, and then Hawaii, and then Kwajalein. And from Kwajalein, we flew to Tinian.
And returning home on the ship, were there any stops there in 19
The only
days?
place we stopped was San Francisco when we got back here.
And you went where directly after?
From there, San Francisco, they shipped me to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, where I got my discharge. November 15th, I think it was, 1945.